Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tipsarevic. I'm a former top 10 ATP player and a current owner of the Tipsarevic Tennis Academy. I'm going to try in short several minutes to talk to you about the essence and importance of footwork on the tennis court. Over the last several years of my career, I slowly started to be obsessed with the biomechanics and motoric capabilities and possibilities, both from the ATP and WTA elite, all the way down to the juniors and all the way down basically to the kindergarten tennis and tennis school. In the exercises that you're going to see after my little speech, you will notice something that in every single exercise we as the Tipsarevic Tennis Academy are emphasizing the importance of footwork. Why is this so important, first of all, for me personally, and where does this obsession come from? There is a saying in Serbia that you say it makes more sense when you translate it from Serbian: you don't build a house before you build the ground floor. One of the biggest mistakes which I've seen over the last, I want to say 17 years on tour and 25 years on the junior and senior circuit was, if I'm purely talking about coaching, that coaches are very often focusing on things which are not necessarily important to improve the particular shot or the overall game of a player. When I say this, again, I'm coming back to the importance of footwork. I personally believe, together with everybody in our academy, is that the vast majority of the mistakes, especially which younger players are making, but this rule goes all the way to the top of men's and women's games, most of the mistakes, or the majority of the mistakes that the players are doing, are coming from their legs or from their footwork. The second important thing which coaches sadly internationally are confusing is that they're confusing speed with footwork, which are two completely different things. One is a free throw in basketball and the other one is a penalty in soccer. These two things have nothing to do together. Speed is our natural ability which can be improved over time and with practice, and footwork on court is something that has essentially nothing to do with speed. One of the best examples in this is Roger Federer. Still at the age of, I want to say 40 something, he's not one of the fastest guys on court, but the biomechanics of his footwork and how he is positioning himself and moving on court is still at the top of the men's game. So from a very young age, and you will be able to see this through the exercises, the first things that we are focusing on in coaching and helping younger players to develop and achieve their potential and get their dreams is actually that we start building the house from the ground floor. And in our opinion, the ground floor is the footwork. The ground floor is the single, in my opinion, most important thing in men's tennis, or in women's tennis for that matter, is the importance of split step. Split step, and you will see it in all of the exercises, is something which is detrimental to the success of every young or even older player, because what does the split step do? Split step activates once we are landing, activates our fast muscle fibers that later on help us to biomechanically move easier from point A to point B, therefore set up and position ourselves in defense or in offense. It happens very often, and I'm sure most of you already heard this, is that when the players are making mistakes, whether they're playing a very simple exercise, which is forehand cross or backhand cross or through the middle or down the line, you see and hear very often coaches making corrections which are factually true, but they're not the core of the problem. If the ball goes to the net, a lot of the coaches would say play the ball with more spin. If the ball goes long, they would say speed up your wrist a little bit. Where is your split step? A lot of the coaches are focusing on things which, as I mentioned, factually are true, but they are not the core of the problem. A lot of the times you see and you say that players like Roger or Marai or Simona Halep or Angelique Kerber or Novak Djokovic have this thing which is a God-given ability to move like spiders on court. This is also factually not true. A lot of the things which coaches are trying to copy from players, if this is a Nadal's forehand or a Federer timing or anything else, these things should not be copied. What you guys should try and copy and work on and look is the actual footwork of these players. I'll give you a simple example. If you take the top 10 men's forehands of all time, and you look what is happening with the upper body of all of these players. One of these players is playing like this, the other player is playing and finishing the racket at his hip. Mr. Del Potro is playing his forehand like with a frying pan. Fernando Gonzalez has a completely different technique with a huge swing. But if you isolate the footwork, how they set up to execute these shots, it's 60, 70 to 80% exactly the same. The biomechanics of their movement and positioning, crossovers, offense, defense, which leg goes first, which leg goes second, in dependence on where you are positioned on the court. This part is 60, 70, 80, 90% exactly the same, irrelevantly of their execution techniques. What am I trying to say? The things which we are doing with our upper body are extremely individual. My forehand grip maybe suits me, but it doesn't maybe suit you or the player that you're coaching. My backhand grip, which is a little bit more open than normal, is maybe suiting you, but is not maybe suiting some other player, or my dear Schwager, Rainer Schuttler. But there's no debate about footwork. There's no discussion about how do you properly need to move, position, and do motorically everything to its perfection to execute the backhand shot. We can debate the technique of the backhand, the grip of the backhand, and even there you have some patterns which are the same in every single shot. But about footwork, there is no debate. The problem lies in coaches being sometimes too lazy to follow up the boring footwork patterns which are making you essentially a better player. And the second and maybe even bigger problem is that it's not really cool. Players, especially young players, hate doing it. It's a grind which, when you do, you don't necessarily see immediate results. Results are coming in 3 months, 6 months, 10 months. And a very simple example is the quality of my ball when I play through the middle against my opponent is not depending whether or not I do a split step, three small and short steps, hit the ball and go back, or if I do it from one step. Visually it looks exactly the same, but the difference in intensity and the difference in quality, if you're biomechanically moving your feet in the right way, will be seen in 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And then later on, you're able to upgrade the current stage to an even better stage. If you defend better, you will attack better. If you attack better, you will defend better. Anyway, use several of these exercises as a starting point and keep focusing on your footwork. Thank you. The general focus of this particular exercise, which is one of the many shadow movement exercises, is the reaction after the split step. You can see that the coach, after he's clapping, is giving me enough time, once he shows the direction where I need to move, to do the movement to the side where he's showing. One of the main points of this exercise is that the coach is giving enough time to the player to move to the particular side on where he's showing. Do not force the player to do this fast. It's incredibly important, the point of the split step in this particular exercise, where the coach, and I'm saying this again, will give the player enough time to react after he does the split step and move to the side where he's showing. Making a split step is more or less easy. Timing the split step is difficult. In this particular exercise, Darko the coach is faking that he's going to hit the ball, I visually see when the hypothetical impact is going to happen, and in accordance to the hypothetical impact, I am trying to time my split step correctly. Remember, we said in the beginning, making a split step is important. Making the right timing of the split step is like you're striking gold. In this case, it's important that I time my split step once Darko is hypothetically hitting the ball. This is a very similar exercise. The only difference is that the coach is deliberately missing the ball in the net. This is again creating a muscle memory that we visually see where the ball is going and we are moving towards it. The coach on purpose misses on the net, but this is again to create the muscle memory that even when the point is open later on and your opponent misses in the net, you're still going towards the ball in a correct footwork technical way. This is a first serve return exercise. I visually see Darko, him holding two balls and giving me an additional signal with his leg if the body serve is coming. The main goal, what the coach should be focusing on, that the player keeps his upper body posture depending on where his body is moving. Moving left, moving right, or even in the body serve. The main point is that you keep your upper body straight without leaning left or right or front or back, because we will get to this later, one of the key factors of having a successful first serve return is to keep your upper body calm and straight while keeping the balance in your legs down. In this exercise, we are working on two things. Number one, we already went through this, the timing of the split step and the initial movement of the opposite leg in playing our volleys. Remember, the opposite leg rule is exactly the same even if we are on the baseline or even if we are on the net. It doesn't make any difference. So, timing the split step once the coach makes the clap and moving to the side where he's showing with the opposite leg. These are the two things you need to focus on. Same exercise like the previous one, the only thing which is changing is in this video my position on the court. Rather than staying closer to the line, I am staying far back from the baseline. This doesn't mean that I am being defensive. This means only that I am putting more emphasis on the load and unload factor and using my legs to get the depth on the other side. Pay attention that every single time I create space with my forehand that I jump. I am jumping not to look cool, I am rather jumping to use the power from my legs or from the ground to be more relaxed on the upper body, get the necessary height, therefore get the necessary depth on the other side. The serve in this exercise is not particularly important. Remember, we are doing shadow movement with our feet. We're focusing on our footwork. The main part is that after we finish our serve stroke is that once we land, we already predetermined that we're going to push ourselves with the opposite leg, going a step back and creating the split step, being ready for the next hypothetical shot. So the serve motion is not as important as it's the footwork, what you're repetitively doing to create the muscle memory, what are your feet doing after your first or second serve. In this shadow movement exercise, I am practicing the positioning on the short balls. My coach is showing me where the short ball is coming, and what we are focusing on is not the running towards the ball, but really feeling the movement after we land after our split step. So we are making the split step and with the opposite leg pushing and then later on walking in the desired direction where we need to go. This is crucial and important to feel the importance of using the opposite leg in the direction where we need to go. Because when we start feeling how easy it is to move forward if we use our muscle fibers with our fast muscle fibers with the opposite leg, later on the sprinting or the running towards the short ball will be much easier. In this exercise, I am executing a short forehand ball. The beginning we are all very familiar with. The execution of the short ball is, we call it left-left. Roger Federer is the master of this technique, where while hitting the ball from the left leg, executing it with the closed stance, he continues staying closed, lands with the left leg, and then from the left leg decides whether he goes to the net or goes backwards. In this case, I am going backwards. The importance of this exercise and executing this forehand left-left is to stay closed while we are hitting our forehand approach shot. This is the main focus that you should be watching and focusing on once your player is executing this technique. This is the most commonly executed forehand short ball. Remember, we are working on our footwork. All the rest is not important. In this particular exercise, I am loading my right foot, and then while I'm hitting the ball, I am moving my left hip, therefore my left foot in front, in order to stay closed while striking the ball. If I don't do it, I am standing completely flat and parallel and open while I'm hitting the ball, which is a terribly executed forehand. So the loading of the right foot, and while we are hitting, we are pushing the left leg or the left hip in front in order to stay closed while we're striking the ball. The story on the backhand is very similar. In this particular exercise of shadow movement towards the short ball of the backhand, the main importance is, similarly to the forehand, to stay closed while we are striking the ball. In this case, the exercise is right. This means that while I'm positioning to hit the ball, my right leg is positioning in front, and when I'm finishing my stroke, I am releasing the energy from the ground, but still landing on my right foot. Shadow inside out forehand is a very important exercise. But again, not what we're doing with our upper body, but rather what are we doing with our footwork. Pay attention that in this particular exercise, after I make the split step, the first initial move is, obviously with my opposite leg, backwards. And leaning and using my upper body basically backwards to come to my desired position as soon as possible. After I strike and hit the ball and land with my left leg, I am using my left leg to pull myself back and go back to the middle as soon as possible. So again, coaches, the main focus is that you're focusing on the first initial step, which is the crossover backward step, and the recovery step, landing and going back to the middle with your left leg. In this shadow exercise, where I am working on my first and second volley, as usual, the rule of opposite still applies. Opposite leg in predetermining where are we moving. The key point here, what the coach needs to focus on when the player is executing this exercise, is that he or she focuses on the split step before he or she moves to a particular side. One of the most common mistakes what players do is that they forget about the split step and only focus on coming as early to the net as they possibly can. The key factor is that on the beginning, before the first volley and before the second volley, the player needs to create a split step which is from utmost importance and significance in order to utilize the fast muscle fibers to change directions. Because remember, in this case, we hypothetically know where the ball is coming. In an open match situation, we don't. Therefore, it's important to make the split step before the first volley as well as before the second volley. In this particular exercise, the coach is feeding 8 balls. forehands from the forehand side and forehands from the backhand side. As you can see me executing these shots, everything is working as one. The split step, the movement, the striking, the closing. This is something that we spoke about individually on every single individual aspect and exercise so far. Now it's time to put this all in sync. When you're doing this exercise from the very beginning, or somebody who is new in our academy, the main part you should be focusing on is not where the ball is going. You shouldn't care if the ball is ending up on the highway outside of the academy. You should be focusing on what your player is doing with your feet. So even though they're striking the ball and hitting the ball, you shouldn't care if this ball is going in the bottom of the net or in the ocean behind you. Pay attention on the split step and pushing from the opposite leg on the direction where you want to go. One of the keys in unlocking your forehand is the successful execution of the load-unload technique. In this particular exercise, my coach is feeding me 3 forehands in a row, where the sole purpose of this exercise and our focus as a team together is the proper loading and unloading of the energy from the ground in order to strike the forehand. The striking of the forehand in this particular exercise is not as important as the feel that you need to get, that you are using the power of the ground and the power of your legs to be completely relaxed while hitting your forehands. So regardless of the position on the court, you can see it in the beginning of the exercise, I am further than towards the end of the exercise. This is not important. The only importance is the loading and unloading of the feet while you're hitting your forehands. This is a typical 1-2 punch. Good approach, good first volley. In this particular exercise, I'm attacking and approaching with my forehand. In this exercise, it's right. Immediately after, pushing, remember, with the opposite leg, with my right leg going to the middle, and the crucial importance of the split step before I hit my backhand volley. Coaches, remember to give enough time to your player to execute both split steps on the very beginning and in the middle before they hit their first volley. This is not about how fast can somebody come to the net or hit the volley. This is about creating a muscle memory so your player, before every single shot they strike, they make the split step. This is an exercise which I'm sure many of you saw or even did many times. The main difference is what are you focusing on once your player is doing the exercise. Again, it's the weight transfer. Pay attention that once you're doing this first volley exercise, that your player is executing the weight transfer perfectly in front. This is detrimental, especially because in this case, this is a first volley. So we need all the help that we can get with the weight of our body to transfer all the power moving forward. In this exercise, you can see that I'm hitting a sideways normal backhand and then later on hitting the approach forehand. It seems like a very simple exercise, but what I want you as coaches to focus on is that you see that your player is utilizing the footwork in the best possible and technically correct way. Don't forget, the player should know where the balls are going. This means that you should clearly see that he or she is pushing sideways from the right leg when they're playing their backhands, and then after making the split step, pushing diagonally with their left leg when they're approaching to hit the short ball. This is the main focus of this exercise. You're using your legs to hit your serve. You're using them much more than you think you do. Apart from the tactical reason why most of the good servers in this day and age have a good forehand, because from a tactical standpoint, we execute our serve and automatically look for a short ball to dominate with our forehands. The second reason is the technique reason. Our serves and our forehands are really similar. We are not executing the technique of, as I like to call it, a volleyball first serve, meaning that we toss the ball, jump, and in the highest possible point, hit the serve and then go down. This is really important. The execution of a successful serve and forehand needs to be that while we are hitting the ball in serving, that we are still going up and we use our arm just as a point of control. So this is not the factor of us jumping high and in the highest point hitting the serve and then going down. It should be something like this, that we are jumping, hitting the serve and still jumping up. This is why in this exercise I don't really care about the shot, I don't really care about the rotation, the spin, the slice. The main purpose is that your player is feeling that he's lifting the ball from the ground by using his legs. The arm is insignificant. The importance of this exercise is only in your player feeling that he is striking the ball while still jumping up.